mean, they didn't. Suppose they went 8 o'clock this morning. Couldn't eat from 12 o'clock last night, and it's almost 11 o'clock. You know our number, offhand? You have to look it up.
It's 347.
3, 4, 6, 7. Wrong one. Push the wrong one. How do you delete?
I could put it in zeros.
Okay.
I don't know how to put it on speaker.
Okay. I don't know. Some speaker something over here. I don't know.
Hello?
Hi, Shims. What's going on?
They took it in,
They took him in?
and, yeah, the doctor didn't tell you?
No, he's not here.
Okay. They took him in about half an hour ago.
For 2 minutes, right?
Well, they need to put him to sleep first.
That's 3 minutes. Okay. All right, but you're not worried. The poor kid was starving, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, remember, we got to get him something good. All the candy he wants.
That's it. I bought ice cream yesterday.
Yeah, and he ate it?
I don't know. No, I'm saying we'll get home and get him ice cream.
Okay, maybe. No, not the fancy stuff. We'll get him good stuff. Okay.
All right.
I'll see you soon. I'm going to start this year soon. That's why I'm calling.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Love you. Be well.
All right. I love you. Love you.
I'm gonna go home and start.
Okay. Good.
People are trying to get in.
No, she's on Simmer. It says Simmer. Okay.
Is there something after Shiur?
What?
Is there something after Shiur?
May as well ask me now before they come.
My son, Hassan, I never put him on my insurance in the car because he was at our church. Likewise, wasn't at home. Once he came home yesterday, he banged somebody. So I don't know if I'm not sure if it's a problem. If so he did it. I don't know if there's a problem. I'm not sure. What should I say that I did it? Should I? It's definitely, I think that they're responsible for anybody driving a car anyway. I think the insurance said.
I mean, so what can you do? I mean, I don't hear the shaila. He hit somebody, though.
The Charles said, it's better to report it
That you did.
I did it this way. So I'm listed on the policy. He's not listed on the policy. And I'm not sure if the good problems like this, why I didn't put him on.
Well, so, do you believe you did it?
I didn't do it.
I know you didn't do it. So that's what I'm saying. That so he did it.
He did it.
But he's embarrassed to tell you that he did it.
He's embarrassed now.
Or he's afraid it's going to cost some money. He said, how's he going to tell you, I was massacring you so much or whatever it is, even though the insurance company will probably pay it. But if it became, maybe insurance will go up. Because that's why he's embarrassed to tell you. I mean, I don't think you have to. You say, which son is it?
Hassan.
I mean, the one that's here.
He's like him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
he's here now, man.
Yeah.
But, I'm assuming that they pay either way, but I'm not sure. But they may problem.
Let's give it.
Should I just? Who should I say that?
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, you're chayav. I mean, it's a difference. Yeah, and then I think you should stop thinking about it too much. Stop thinking about it too much.
No, I have to. If I call him up, I know who should I say.
I understand. What are you going to call up? I mean, just say okay, whatever it is there. Well, you mean you have to defend yourself.
What? No, that's a question of who. If he's that's the problem. He's not in policy. He's not listed on the policy as a driver.
Yeah.
There's going to be problems that.
I don't think if you put down notice and say your title said what your son did it, you loaned the car to somebody and he did it. Okay. You're allowed to loan your car. You don't. He's not a house driver. He's not a member of the house. He borrowed the car.
I should better say that he did it.
You know you didn't. So you know the answer. What's your shot? What are you gonna do? You know, Pshat's fear is a big thing for this. He can't tell you the truth because he's afraid. What is he afraid? He's embarrassed.
He's not asking. I'm asking.
Yeah.
I have to go up the company. So.
Yeah. You come to the company. You just you somebody. The guy notified you who it is.
What?
You know who the person here is, right?
Yeah, it's one of my neighbors.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So that's it. No fighting. That's it. No mungy yet.
What?
No mungy yet.
He knows about it. We told about it.
Okay, good. You told the company that someone that borrowed the car hit someone. What do you?
I have to tell my son if they want.
Yeah. No. It's a kleine garment. Well, that's good. Yeah. Ready? Okay. May put in some stuff from last week just simply to understand chesed. Anyway, we find the Toldos starts off that they needed they were swallowed for a child, and Baruch Hashem she had figuring something's wrong by her, and she doesn't go to Yitzchak, who's a Navi. She goes to Shem. I guess you would have to say, why didn't you go to Yitzchak? Could be, and this could be either her own fear, or somehow it came up. I can't answer that. But obviously, she was choshid. She didn't expect twins, so obviously thought it was one kid. And she couldn't understand what's going on with this kid, if it's a good boy or a bad boy, or whatever she is. And because of that, she was in a quandary, and she was choshid that maybe the fact that she comes from Besuel and over there, and so there's a boom in her that maybe she gave it over genetically to her kid. And in Emerson, this is going to be, I assume, the argument between Rivka and Yitzchak about Esav all the time was that Yitzchak would say, or could say, or think, if he didn't say, that, Rivka sees boogeyman under the floor because she was brought up in a house of Roshoyim. So sometimes a kid acts out a little bit. So automatically she hunches up at Sosha, even though when I didn't, you're supposed to be listening to your wife in these inyanim. But she's mistaken in this case. And that would be one way of getting, devaluating her opinion. And obviously she was right in the end. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But meanwhile, that was one of the fears she had. So she went to Shem. Shem told her she has twins, and that the older one will serve the younger one, whatever that means. Right? That's what she went, so she came back. Now, she never told Yitzchak that she went to Shem. Because, how do we know that? Because it says that and all of a sudden there are twins. That means it was a big surprise. She knew, so it wasn't a surprise to her. So it must be a surprise to Yitzchak. Otherwise, she didn't tell him. And that's what the old adage, that pshat is, you don't tell a Navi anything, because if the Rebbeinu Shem wants the Navi to know, he can tell him himself. And if he doesn't want him to know, he won't tell him. So therefore, there's nothing for anybody to tell a Navi. A Navi, you don't have to tell anything. Yeah. This, by the way, is the Nevuah that she knew, that Targum says later on, when she says, Alai kilas chabani, when she tells him to pretend he's Esav, so he said, what happens if he'll catch me? And who catches? He says, Alai nil kilas, I'll absorb the klal. What does that mean in English? First of all, who says you can? But the Targum translates it as saying, I know b'nevuah that it won't happen, that there won't be a klal. Which nevuah did she know that by? So obviously this is the nevuah that she knew it by. Since she's going to be above, so obviously there was no klal, or it wasn't chal at least. So that might, so I was able to guarantee it. Okay. Now it says, whatever the day was, there's all kinds of midrashim about that day. Avram died. Okay, at this point we have to know there are things that happen in life that is the result and the start of something. Esav was going to be a Russia. And because of that, the Rebbeinu Shem took Avram 5 years earlier. So you shouldn't see that. Because on this day, when he was 15, he killed Nimrod. He was mizana with somebody. In other words, he did a bunch of averos. And it would have been very upsetting to Avram Avinu. So he died. What caused Esav to go off the derech completely? The fact that Avram died. In other words, Avram should have been, how could he die? He's such a tzaddik. Now, he knew that much, that what tzidkis was, just that either he had a big yetzer hara or whatever it is there. He wasn't a kaifer. He just wanted to do it, whatever he wanted to do. So he can't believe that he died. And if he died, then obviously God is not fair, whatever it is there. So therefore, whatever he went became bad. But so it seems to be that this is good for what caused him to become bad. The fact that Avram died. And yet on the other hand, the reason Avram died was not to make sure that he doesn't see him become bad. So in other words, Esau would have become bad regardless. That's a Metzias. The Ben knew. The Shaila is what's going to push him over the edge. In the particular case, it happened to be the part that wanted to protect him from Avram from was the one that pushed him over the edge. But it would have been something else the next day, or the same day. Now, Esau comes home hungry after that day, because he was afraid people were chasing him, or whatever reason he came in hungry after this whole day, and he's willing to sell his bechayah to Yaakov. You know, that reminds me of a story. There was a guy came to the rabbi, and he says, I would like you to make me a kohen, Rabbi. He says, I can't. He says, I'll give you $10,000 to make me a kohen. I can't. Give you $50,000 to make me a kohen. I can't. I said, so he finally says, why do you want to be a kohen for so badly? He says, because my father was one. Okay, so in other words, kahuna comes from a metzias. You can't buy it. A bechor you can't buy. You are or you aren't. Doesn't make anything to buy. So what is the purpose of his buying it, I think? The purpose of his buying was he really is the bechor. I'm going to maybe tell how he is the bechor in a minute. Rashi brings down that he is the bechor from logical, when you put things into a bottle, first one in is last one out. Right? If you have a very skinny bottle, that you have, so the first one is last one out. Right? It's completely against the law of Bechayah. We know that if they're twins that are born, what do you call it? The older one is the Bechar. The first one out is the Bechar. So it's completely against the laws of the Torah. So what is it? Why is she telling us this whole point? The first one is the last one out. So therefore, I want to tell you something that I think is emes. We know from by Yankov Avinu, by Reuven, he calls him Leishas Oini. Rashi says you were my first zera. Never made zera in his life until that time. So you are my first zera. That is an emes bechor. And no matter what, they took away the bechorah from Reuven. They took away the fact that he had pishnayim. They took away from him that he was that the malchus belongs to him. They took away from the kahuna. And yet, in every time that you count the shiftei kah, it always says bechor Yisrael or bechor Yaakov Reuven. Why does he keep saying the word bechor? You took it away. Just say b'nei Yaakov Reuven, whatever it is there. Because he is Metzias, my bechor. That cannot be taken away from him. He is my bechor. Now, we say, like, how come no one else is like that? Because everyone else, it's not the first zera. So if it's not the first zera, what makes a child a bechor? The first one out of the woman's body through a man. That makes him his bechor. But as far as but if it would be really his zera, the first zera, that's his bechor. That means he is his bechor. So Reuven is his bechor. In this case, the first one in, last one out, means that the first egg that was fertilized was Yaakov. And therefore he was the second one out. But he's the first egg fertilized by the first zera of Yitzchak. And therefore he came out and he's a bechor. Now you'll ask me, he's married for 20 years. What do you mean? The first zera. And that's why the world would not believe such a maisa. So the first zera means because what was his problem not being able to have a child? He couldn't be Meitzi zera. It happens to be a not uncommon malady. There's obviously they fix it up, but it's not uncommon, and therefore he couldn't be Moitzi Zera. And this is the and that the bench he was mispalel for him, Baruch Hashem Beis cured, and therefore he was Moitzi Zera finally. But the Goyim wouldn't believe it, so he had to buy it to make it sound that the world will accept his kahuna, his bechira, because he bought it. But in reality, I don't see there's no way to buy a bechira. You have to be a bechira. Okay, that's why I think at the end of the bechira.
Yaakov knew that problem.
I'm sorry.
Yaakov knew that problem. That Yosef was not Moitzi Zera until 20 years.
Either that, or he could have known it. Could be, or he was Yankee Favino, and there's no kasha. He's a Navi, so maybe he knew it. So it is. You know, a Navi seems to be Superman. You know, he can see through walls, and there's nothing hidden from him in the world. You see that by the fact that when Shaul HaMelech was lost the donkeys, where they go, they went to Shmuel to find how Shmuel going to know where it is. But you're a Navi, so you can able to look around and you say, there they are. And we can't do that. It means there's no privacy from a Navi. I can't answer that question. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the Benshim comes to Menachem Ovel, Yitzchak, and he tells him that because Avram Avinu, Ekev Shisham Avram B'Koili V'Yish Mishmarti Misveisei Chukoisei V'Seveisei. That's why I gave him all these things and I'm giving them to you. Rashi says Chukoisei goes on like shatnez and Chazel, that the Goyim answer us, meaning they have a taina to us. Why don't you eat it? Why don't you do it? Why? What's their taina as opposed to let's say other type of chukim? Because very simple, you believe in God, don't you? And God obviously, and God made a creature that's its total usage is only for food. There's no other thing that you do with it. The chazak cannot do anything else. Just be eaten. It happens to be so good that you can eat everything from it. Its skin you can actually make into gilbinis, like a chicken skin. It's not like, even though you make leather from it, it's not like a cow or a horse. It's ribbonous. You can make bichaf from its feet. You can make kishke from its intestines. Mamish, it's total food. And the whole thing can be eaten. And so therefore, if you believe in God, obviously it must be food. It must be something that's made for food. So why don't you eat it? The answer is because God said no. Same thing goes along with chatness. It's what's called linsey-woolsey by the Puritans. That means that you wear linen for the strength and wool for the beauty, and you combine them and you have a beautiful suit. If you'll take a look on most suits, unless a very expensive wool maker, but which are worsted, whatever they do to make it that good that it wears well, you'll find that they have either, they don't put in linen because we have shatnez, so they put in polyester, dacron, some other type of stuff to make it strong, but the same thing, you want it to have that nice look, you have to have the wool. So linen and wool are a very beautiful thing to have, so how can you tell me shatnez is awesome? The Benshim made it that way. So again, Benshim said no. What is the purpose of this? Rosh Hashiva once said on the Yetz Hadas, he says, the Yetz Hadas, what was obviously the purpose we don't know. We're not looking for the Benshim's purpose in making anything, except to make the world the way it is. We needed an Yetz Hadas. About, you needed, but what was like a side issue of the Yetz Hadas, what happened? Every time Adam Arishon walked past the Eitz Hadas, he would look at it and say, that fruit looks pretty good, but, I can't eat it. Why can't you eat it? Because God said no. Who's God? God is the owner of the garden. God is the one who made me. God is the one who made everything. And he said no was no. It tells us you yiras Hashem. You know there's a God all the time in your life. The same thing goes to these type of mitzvahs, of these chukim that we want to feel that we'd like to have it maybe, but the Rebbe said you can't have it. Why? Because the Rebbe runs the world. He owns the world. He gave us a Torah, and that's it. Whatever he says goes, whatever not is no, and that's the way it is, that's what we believe, and the Mele, it makes an asiras hukim. So the chuk, you have to raise it until it becomes a parah, which is a couple of years, and then you can first make a paradum out of it. How long is it going to last like that? But the kash is, eventually it costs millions of dollars. Like the woman in the scene said, I could ask you for all the money in the world, and you would have given it to me. So it's many dollars. It's very expensive. Everybody buys very expensive stuff for their wives. You had a guy has a fight with his wife. He wants to make her feel good. He goes out and he buys the real good flowers from a florist, not from the garage. And he paid $100 for a dozen. And he brings it home, and oh wow, what beautiful flowers, anything there. Where are we going to put it? So we got to get a vase. He said, we hunt for the vase to get the long stem. It's not so pushing to put them into a vase. But anyway, we finally found a proper vase for it, and we putting in. Where are we going to put it? You can't put it in the kitchen. We all eat in the kitchen, but it's such a crowded place in the kitchen. You can't put it there. We'll put it in the dining room table. But nobody eats there until Shabbos. Okay, but it's still on the dining room table. We'll see it when it's there. The truth is, how many times you really walk into the dining room when during the weekdays? Really? Unless you use it for something else. But if you're using it as a dining table for Shabbos, very rarely do you go in there. So she passes through every so often, and she takes a look at it and says, wow, very nice, and she goes weiter. Finally comes Shabbos, and everybody's sitting around the table, and now they all see how beautiful the flowers are, and someone says, can we at least remove the flowers because we can't see each other? And you take the flowers and you put it on the back of you, the wonderful thing, and nobody looks at it, whatever it is. And then a day or two after that, it starts to smell. You have to dump it and has to find it. It doesn't go down you're packing very well. It's all uchi and good. And I spent $100 for this or more. Wouldn't it have been better if you went and bought something that can last and something that you may enjoy? No, because I want to show her I'm willing to spend money, and waste money really, because I could have done the other thing, just to please you, just to make you feel good. To know that I care for you that much. That's the main thing. So the same thing for the Rebbeinu Shalom. We do that. Bisman hazeh, I would say to the esrik. In Adin, you probably can be kosher for about $25 for everything. So why are you spending about $400, $500? By the time you get everything. Because I want to show the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's only for a few days, especially this year. It's only going to, in the coming year, it's only going to be one day that we're going to have the Reise. It's no the Reises next year, only the Rabbanas. And we're still going to pay the same amount of money. It's not going to be a bargain. So why are we doing this? Because we want to show Hashem that we love Him. So that's Ahavas Hashem. So all mitzvahs that cause you a loss, or at least you feel there's a loss, Shabbos, Yontif, whatever it is, I can't earn any money, whatever it is there, those teach you Ahavas Hashem. Because why are you doing it? Because I love God, and He told me to do it. There's a third one, really, of Chukim, and that's where you're not allowed to be nene from Avodah Zorah or any type of let's say Chumash or Pesach, and things like that. where it is where you have to waste a lot of money, possibly, by Avodah Zorah for sure. If you know that it was Avodah Zorah, so even though you can look at him, you can Torah, you can support, give all the reasons you want. I can't because it's worthless. It has no value. So it has no value. So what is it teaching us? It teaches us b'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you say we can't use this, means we don't need this. That means we have b'tochen HaKadosh Baruch Hu who will supply us the needs from somewhere else. And that's the main point that we're trying to show. So that's the importance of chukim. Chukim are very important. They build us by not, even though we don't feel it, we don't know why we're doing it, it internalizes itself in us, and it builds us and forms us. Then we have a very, very strange chesed of Yitzchak. Tells a funny story, and what happened is he planted. He's living in Feisntein, and he became extremely wealthy. I don't know what happened to money from Avraham Avinu, but whatever it is there. But from him alone, simply he himself became extremely wealthy. He became 100 times more than what either normal, or 100 times more than 100 times of normal. Meaning the Maisa was 100 times more. Anyway, whatever it is, it's an abnormal thing. And he had a tremendous money, and because of that, he was able to buy animals and avodim and what he thought. He was an extremely wealthy man. And the plishtim are mikana him, and they're angry at him, or whatever you want to call it. You know, when you're mikana, when you're jealous of somebody, you really hate him in a way. So what they did, they started to seal all the wells around Gor, where he was. They started to seal them, and these wells were made by Avraham. So why they seal? So what's the justification? You guys be crazy. You need the water. So why are you closing it up? The enemy may come, and if they occupy this area, they'll have water supply, and because they'll have a water supply, they'll be able to make a long siege, and because of that, they'll finally capture our country. So therefore, we must do this. Okay, can't do anything about it. So he moves, and he moves. Thank you. And he moves until he tries to find a new well. It took him 3 wells to find it. Okay, he finds a 3rd well, and he's very, he's happy where he is. But what he does is he goes back and he redigs the wells that he took off all the dirt, the cement, whatever they put on it, to seal the wells. He unseals them. You're not living there anymore. You left. Why did you do that for? Because I know the reason that they told me that they needed it because they were afraid of the enemy was a baloney story. They really did it because they wanted to hurt me. Now that I moved, they still need the water. So I'm going to go do them a chesed. Chesed, the people who hated you? Yes. There's an inyan of doing chesed even to people that hate me. And the point there that because I know what their problem is, I know they need water, I know they need something, I'm not able to make revenge on them. I'm coming and I'll help them. That was Yitzchak Chesed. We know a Chesed of Avraham, that taking in Arabs and trying to make them feel like special people because he started from zero to make them food. He didn't have anything prepared for them. He was just starting to show them how choshev they are. So we understand that chesed. Does it mean that all the chesed comes from Avraham? Or we also have the genetic chesed from Yitzchak? And add to it the genetic chesed of Rivka, which is last week's chesed. What did she do? The story of Eliezer comes to Harav, and he's staying by the well, right? I assume he wasn't a small fellow. So he must have been a big bulvan. And he goes over to this little girl. I don't know how little she was, but she's supposed to be 3 years old. So he goes over to this little girl, whatever 3-year-old girl looked at that time, even if she was like ready to get married, but you still look like a young kid. And he goes over to her and he asks, to give him a drink. I would like you to pour water into my mouth. What would be the normal react? What should you normally have done? A guy needs water. He hasn't gotten any kalim. He goes over to a girl, a man, anybody who's drawing water. He says, "May I please borrow your pitcher? I forgot my pitcher. I don't have any. I'm very thirsty. I'll drink it up, and I promise you, I'll wash it out from my mouth, and I'll refill it and give it back to you in a few minutes. Okay?" Would anybody refuse such a thing? That's the normal way to ask for something. He says, no, I want you to pour the water into my mouth. How am I supposed to do that? You want to lay down on the floor so I can reach you? You're 10 feet tall. How am I supposed to reach you? Okay. So she says, what she's really saying to him, and the way she said it, and I'll prove it in a minute, was she said, I see you get your kicks out of bullying young girls or young kids. You think I'm afraid of you? I'm not afraid of you. But I'll do your chesed. I'll give you what you want. If that's the only way you're going to drink water, is only if you're able to scare me to give it to you, I'll pretend I'm scared and I'll give it to you. How do we know she wasn't scared? Because what was be his raya then? If he's such a big bulvan and he's going to go over to a young kid, she's going to be so scared of him. She's going to say, of course, drink. I'll even give you camels to drink, because she's scared of him. She doesn't want him to hurt her. So what's the raya that she's a balas chesed? So the union is that she said, first drink. And then when he finished drinking, she said to him, I will now give you camels. That means she wasn't telling him before that she's going to give the camels. And the rise there was, because I'm not scared of you. I'm doing it because I want to do you chesed. And the only way you're going to get things is because you like to pick on people. So here it is. I'm willing to help you out. I think you're crazy, but that's the way you want to do it. I'll give it to you. That was the Rivka. The truth is, if we use that attitude, instead of using the attitude of, don't let them take advantage of you, or tell them off if they're bullying you or whatever. So whatever the things are, we tell them, Mr. Bully, you can't get a glass of water by yourself. You need my help to get it. Gladly, here it is. You can't go to the store yourself. Your feet are broken. You feel tired. I'll go to the store for you. I don't mind. How about do your chesed? That's what you need. That's what you need. You're a sick guy, and I need to help you. Do you think there'll be bullies in the world anymore with that attitude towards them? That they're a bunch of sick kids? I think that the bullies will end. That's the chesed of Rivka. He comes, Avimelech saw the Chetzlocha that he's still having, and he goes to make a treaty with them. And it seems to be the same words as used by Avraham Avinu. And it says again the same thing. Why is it called Beersheba? Because they swore, and they built and they had the well, and they called it Beersheba. Well, if they called it already Beersheba in Avram's time, why are you calling it Beersheba in Yitzchak's time? We know the name of the town. So we must say, what was this bris that they made? I assume the same bris he made by Avraham Avinu, which was they take over the education of Beersheba. That he's going to have his own school or his own thing in Beersheba. So therefore Yitzchak, you see, was doing the same work Avraham was doing. He was being makar of people from all nations and all people, and he had a yeshiva there, and that's what he was doing. He was making peace. So when did he take it over? When they came to him to give him over the same deal they made with Avram Avinu. And that's why he goes back again, that it's Beersheba, the continuation of the Beersheba that Avram created. I think we spoke about last night. I think Rabbi Yeva, he was still speaking. Yeah. You listening? Yeah, listening. Okay. And Toldos, right? Anyway, Torah tells us that Esau got married. He's 40 years old. He marries 2 women, and both of them are Chitis. You'll see Rashi in Parshas Vayishlach will say that Olivama bas Anoah, the word he took, that's Yehudis bas Be'eri. And she's really a Chivi. She's not a Chiti. And the funny name he called her, Yehudis bas Be'eri. It's a fake name. It's an alias. It's not a name. The name was Olivama bas Anoah. So why did he call this name? And why did Bedavke not admit to her to a Chivi? Because Avram Avinu and Yitzchak Avinu, they both refused to accept into Klal Yisrael a Chivi. Who is this Chivi that they refused to take in? Is Timnah. Timnah which became Pelegish to Eliphaz, and gives a mother Amalek. They refused to take her in. Why? Because she was a Chivi. It doesn't say why in the things, but I'm going to explain why the Chivi is the problem that bothered them. But they refused to they all turned her down. And she wanted so badly to become Medubik, Rashi says, to the children of Avram, because they loved Avram so much. That the party doesn't say, just says they wanted to be Medubik to the children of Avram. To such a degree, she was even willing to become a Pelegish to Eliphaz, who her niece is the wife of Esau. Wow, what a letdown on a person, right? And yet she was willing to do that just to be part of the family of Avram Avinu. That's why she got Amalek. Now, what was wrong with a Chivi? The Chivi, I show, we have the Maisa by who's the Chivi that we know of. Lina was with Shem and Chamor. Now, with Chamor can talk one way to one person, talks the other way to the other person. In other words, he's a good actor, he's a good politician, whatever you want to call him. We also have the cities that made Shalom with Yoshua, Givon, and those cities, and they pretended to come from a far place, and they again were actors. And being an actor, they can pretend to be whoever they want. He couldn't bring in the Chivi into a house that Yitzchak, because he wants Yitzchak's approval. He's not going to bring a Chivi into the house. So he pretended she's a Chiti. And how did he pretend? He called her Yehudis. Yehudis means I don't do Avodah Zarah. So that was, so I thought, what a great girl she is. But she couldn't put on the right act. Unfortunately, she was a Mavasruach to Rivka and to Yitzchak. Because she was a lousy actress. So the idea was that he wanted that she should fool them into thinking she's a Chiti and not a Chivi. Okay, now, Yitzchak decides he wants to give a bracha to Esau. He tells him to go out. And Rashi says 2 things he tells him to do. I want you to make sure it's kosher, and I want you not to steal it. So then we see from here, I don't think he would tell that to Yankov Avinu. Don't steal and make sure it's kosher. So obviously he knew who Esav really was. But he let himself be fooled like a father usually does by asking those silly questions, and he knew that he didn't learn. If he asked a kasha the Yemaisa salt, that doesn't show any intelligence, that doesn't show that he learned the Mishnahs or anything. It shows he's ignorant. He just knows the Yemaisa and he doesn't know what, so he hasn't asked a stupid question. So he knew he didn't learn also. So why is he wanting to give him the brachas? Because he touched up that by asking the stupid questions, what he's trying to show me is he really wants to learn. But it's hard for him. He hasn't got the focus factor. He can't focus. He has the Yetzer Hara. He wants to go running in the fields. He wants to, whatever the reason is, I can't do it. But I want to know. I want you to think I know at least. Right? So therefore he asks questions that are silly. And Yaakov knows he's also lazy, and therefore he may not do the shecht kosher himself. But on the other hand, he knows he will not do anything against Yaakov Avinu. Otherwise, against Yitzchak. If he didn't know that, then how can he trust that if he's the guy that eats tafus and what do you call it, how can I trust him? He's not going to steal it and he's going to shecht it. So obviously, Yitzchak knew that Esav loved him to the degree that he will never try to fool him. And therefore, those two things, I can trust if he tells me he's going to do it, he's going to do it. That's what he told me. Rivka overhears this, and she knows Esav for who he is, and figures that Yaakov Avinu, knowing Esav who he is, but hoping that Esav is really a good kid, wants to somehow make a partnership of, let's say, Yisachar Zvulun partnership, that Yaakov Avinu will learn. Yeshiv Tam Yeshiv V'Elam. He's always in yeshiva. He's always learning. He knew that too. So he wants to. So he'll be the guy learning yeshiva, but he needs support. Otherwise, so those have to go out and get him a job. And they'll take him away from yeshiva. Esav will be the support, and Esav will give the money. It's a good deal. And he's going to give him a bracha like that. What's a bracha? As long as you're a good guy, you'll have money. You're not going to be a good guy anymore, you won't have money. You won't be in support anymore. Which is a good bracha to give him. It was a condition only if he's a good guy. Rivka understood there's a differences in different what's called a good guy. I'll give you a mashal. A new rabbi comes to a little hick town, which has a day school, but it's mixed. And he's a real frummy, so he's going to separate them. And he separates them. But he has to get a new set of teachers, maybe a new building even, a different place. It's a lot of money. And he's not the best fundraiser. And in time, he's $1 million in debt. In a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it took. He doesn't know what to do. He's going to have to close. He won't have any school at all. So he's going around who will help him. So one guy volunteers to help him. Rabbi, I'll bury your debt. I'll carry your debt. Don't worry. But I need 3 conditions from you. Yes, you didn't have Sunday school. You had Sunday school. I don't think that's right. The parents have the only day off they have is Sunday. They want to see their kids. You got to give them off for Sunday. You made a long day. You know what? You taught them for 4 hours of Hebrew, then 4 hours of English. It's a long day. It's not on 3 o'clock, but it's at 6 o'clock exit. You know, you really gotta cut it down. And you know, we can't keep the budget the way it is because it's just going to keep getting the thing there. So you're going to have to put the boys and girls together. Yeah. And the guy, just to get out of this job, out of this mess he's in, yes, I'll do everything you say. And the guy gives him $1 million and he has all this debt. Were we back to the same place we started? Mixed place, in other words. The guy who comes to help you doesn't always want you to help you the way you want it to be helped. He has conditions in how he helps you. And those conditions usually, this is I found. It may not be true in all cases, obviously, but very few people will support institutions that claim that they're better than they are, or that they're training people to be better than they are. For chaykim, you'll get all the money you want. Kill for kroivim, I wouldn't bet on it. And in a way, the better you become, the less your support becomes, because there are only fewer people that want that. And that's what she was afraid of. Esav will support the yeshiva as long as you're going to support a lifestyle similar to mine. You make a little more religious, maybe you daven more in the morning, but I expect afterwards you go out and have a good time. You want to study. Yeah, that's not for guys in my place. I know the reality. Guys don't want to really study, so we're going to make a good gym and a good library and a good place for computers and whatever. Everything you want we'll have. Every game, give you a good time, and so you'll have. You want to come to school, whatever it is. This is the thing. That's not what we want. But basically, so that's not the support we want. That's what Rivka knew. So we can't have Esav's support. So what he wants to do now is she wants him to go take Esav's bracha, which is to support Torah, and you become self-supporting. So it's not a point that he got Torah, he got a bracha. He didn't get a bracha. He got a bracha that he doesn't have a partner, Esav. That was his bracha. And therefore he can be self-supporting now. But it's going to be hard self-supporting because you're learning and working at the same time, or somehow you're getting money, or you're going to have your own Yisachar Zvulun deal that you'll have to have that foundation. And that's what Baruch Hashem we are now. If you remember, and most of you won't remember because you're young people yet, but when I was a kid, most boards of yeshivas were made up of Mechalei Shabbos. The people that were Mechal Shabbos, though, were kosher people. They came from former families, and maybe they did. So the main reason they gave money to yeshivas was that the kids should have what to eat, the kids should have what to be, whatever it is in the Jewish atmosphere. Because they were Jewish, they believed in Yiddishkeit and the nationalism of Yiddishkeit, and they were able to support the Torah. Their children, unfortunately, not being kosher children, don't do that. So therefore, if they were to support us, it wouldn't happen. They don't want to support us. There are different federations, things like that, where all of a sudden there are different deals. Not all federations are that way, but in a lot of places, that's the deal. We're equal. For Freie, that's all one thing. And that's the part that we don't want. They want to have our own support. Baruch Hashem, the Ben Hashem is able to do it to us. It's given it to us now. So now the boards are Baruch Hashem. We have a ganz feine billionaires that are from Eden, Baruch Hashem. Okay? And that's the ones who are supporting Torah. And they even don't have to be billionaires. They have the help of every Pashid Yid knows. And he wants to give Meisel if he can, or whatever it is there. And Baruch Hashem, we're able to support all the institutions we have. Yeah. Now, interestingly, Yaakov agrees, but he's still afraid that, he's going to touch him, he's going to feel him. Now, they are twins. I assume they are fraternal twins. That the pshat is they're not identical twins, they're not one egg, they're two eggs. And therefore they're fraternal, and because they look completely different. But the voices will probably be pretty much the same. Or at least it can be imitated. Now, from the voice sound, I don't think, because otherwise if you sound like Yaakov and you sound like Esau, what are you going to do? How are you going to fool Yaakov? How are you going to fool Yitzchak? So obviously we sound alike, or I can make myself sound like you. So assuming that he did it. So how are you going to get caught? You're going to get caught because he's going to touch you, and you'll see that you don't have that hairy body that Esav has. So Rivka puts on the skins of goats, which are hairy, and therefore if you touch it, you'll feel like a hairy thing, and therefore he'll be satisfied. And that's what she does, and use it on the bare parts of the body, the arms and the neck and all that thing. And the truth is, that's exactly what Yitzchak does. He wants to see who's the kid. But something's bothering Yitzchak. This kid Esav talks to me one way. I'll show you. Esav comes in, what does he say? His father. Yokum Aviv, get up, father, v'yochem etzei b'nai, in order you should bless me. Now let's see how Yitzchak said it. How Yaakov said it. Vayema Avi, Vayema Hineni, Yemi Ata B'nai, Vayema Yaakov Elaviv, Anoichi Yes B'cherecha, Osisi Kasha Dibalta. He doesn't say get up and eat it. It's like he says first, make sure he knows that I'm here, Avi, right? And then he says, please get up and eat from the food that I brought you. Right? So Yitzchak says, how come you're so fast? Right? Since I told you to go catch it. And what do you call it? You have to shecht it and make a kosher and all that. How come you're so fast today? So he says, Ki hikra Hashem alekecha lefanai. God made me able to catch it. Right? This he was being his own natural self. This he's talking like sometimes you say Mirz Hashem, Baruch Hashem, just from Regilus. Whenever somebody says nicely, you say Baruch Hashem. If you're going to be someplace, you always say Mirz Hashem. And you mean it. It started off obviously because you meant to say it every time and so on, but now it becomes that you can't even talk without it. And that's the thing that Yaakov couldn't act like Esav. In other words, he was trying his best, but the please came out. And the God came out. It was not something that he planned. And therefore, in that way he fooled himself, meaning Yitzchak knew something was fishy here. So kol Yaakov, that's the kol, doesn't mean it sounded like Yaakov. But what he says is like Yaakov, and yet the hands are like Esav. It doesn't make any sense, but he loves such a deal. In other words, he doesn't mind that there should be such a person that the hands are. So maybe it's working his dream. His dream is working. Not that he should learn so far, but at least be religious. Okay. And he gives him the bracha, and the bracha was you should have matam. And it's also, Rashi says, meferish, v'yitein, v'chazal, v'yitein. He will give you, and will give you again. Why do we have such a strange bracha? Why not just give us? Right? By Yosef, he just gives him. He just says, you'll have from Shvani Oretz, you're going to have everything you want. But us, he said, forgive, because he was giving the bracha of Esau, not the bracha of Yaakov. And he was telling him that Esau, since you're a Rasha, and I want you to be good, as long as you're good, the Ben Shem will give you. If you stop being good, the Ben Shem won't give you. And that's the bracha we got, because that's the one he stole, if you want to call it that. And therefore, we have that bracha that when we don't do good, the Ben Shem, you'll say how many freie millionaires there are in the world and stuff like that. You're right. Some of them are Rishoim Gemurim, which is trying to harm us. All of this may be true, but that again is the Rebbeinu Shalom's way of trying to whatever it is, give us onshim or whatever it is in this world. But on the other hand, he made it very possible for us to be good. So he comes in, and then Esau says to his father, when Esau comes and he's bringing the same thing, and who are you? And he says, so Gam Bochi. That is when he really gave him the bracha. Gave him the bracha there, but now he knew someone fooled him. That Yaakov was here. He gives and says, Gam Bochi. Why did he agree? Now, we didn't think Esau would hear that. He should get very upset, but maybe he didn't know how much that meant. Maybe he thought he gave him the bracha before. This doesn't mean anything, Gam Bochi. But why Taka did he do it? I think this much. He understands. He knew Rivka always acquiesced to him. She was I guess the quietest of the Umayyas was. She was just taking everything because he was so much in her eyes. Yitzchak was Yitzchak, and there's nothing you can do with that. He can do no wrong. I just got to try and help him and do the right things, whatever it is there. So he thinks in his mind, if he fooled him, Yaakov Avinu is not a trickster. Yaakov Avinu doesn't have that kind of character that he's able to go and pretend to be somebody else. It probably comes from Rivka. But if Rivka, it means it so much to her that she's willing to do this and fool me, or try to fool me, then she really knows that she's right. And if she feels that way, then I'm asking that she's right. And that's really the halachas, really. Then the Gemara says, in the middle of the Shmaya, you follow the husband. In the middle of the Alma, you follow, or in the middle of the Beise, you follow the wife. Because she knows people better. She understands people better. Man maybe understands godly things better. So therefore, the man gets with the godly things. And the women get the other thing. Even though they say Rabbi Yisrael Salanta said in all his life he never found anything that was in the middle of the Shmaya. So I can't answer that, but we all understand what I'm talking about. Now, when you want to go into business with someone, and your wife says, I don't think he's an honest guy, you don't go into business with the guy. Because your wife knows. And as far as the kids go, that's shayla, that's the machlekes. Understand the kids better than you do. And therefore, Shema b'koila, like you have by Tzorah that the Rebbeinu tells Avram Shema b'koila when she chased out Yishmael from the house. So obviously, in these things, you listen to the woman. So how come I say he didn't listen to her all the years till now? Because he didn't listen to her because he thought it was the boogeyman. The Mesuel and Lovin are always, he always sees that. But now that to act so much, to do so much, you must be convinced she's right. It's not just something she did because she disagrees with me. This means she really thinks she's right. And therefore, if she really thinks she's right, then she's right. And that's why he agrees. So Esav keeps crying. Painishly, Daddy, don't you have another bracha? He said, I can't have no other bracha. I gave him everything. He says, that's not what I'm interested in. I'm not interested to be the supporter of Torah. I want money. I want to be on top of the world. I want to conquer the world. That's what you want. You want Gashmias, you don't want Ruchnias. That's plenty here you can have. But I already gave Yaakov Avinu that when you're bad, that you're under him, that you have. But if they will come out like this and want to rule the world, because on date, they rule the world. And the reason that Rome is considered, Eretz Edom ended up as only Seir. Now how come Rome all of a sudden becomes, what do you call it? The Medrash has that Sefo, which is one of Esav's sons, he's the one that went towards Greece, which is, it's called, what do you call it? Italia, the love, the oven. That's called, but there was no boot there until Shlomo Melech somehow was chayta with Baspari, and therefore they threw in a piece of wood, and then it became Italy. And that was technically part of Greece. If you see, there's very little, there's only a small strait over there, and therefore there was only one country, and he settled there. And he conquered it, he settled there, but that's how Rome became as Esav. The thing that. Yeah. Now, you'd think that Rivka really didn't like Esav. That's what it seems to say that he loved, what do you call it, Tzai B'Fiv, and he loved, however you want to call the Tzai B'Fiv, if he fooled him or he actually gave him to eat. But he had a relationship with Esav. He loved him. Doesn't mean he didn't love Yaakov. I'm sure he loved Yaakov, but Yaakov was in the yeshiva all day. So there was no real contact with him daily because he's always learning. Or Esav, he talks to him, he sees them, whatever it is there, so he has a nice contact with him. Rivka, on the other hand, has more contact with Yaakov because he comes home for lunch or whatever other times, or he comes to tell him her problems, tell her his problems. And Esav, meanwhile, is in the field, he's on the ground over there. So, but you see, she loves him by saying, I don't want to lose both of you in one day. He wants to kill you. So go away. I don't want to lose both of you in one day. I mean, she loves him. Otherwise, why should she care if he dies? Right? She does love him. But she knows who he is. And she tried to raise him to be a good kid. And this is really what I think happened originally, why they became who they became. When they were young kids, one became a tzayid, and one became a Talmud Chacham. The things that you as kids, you don't notice. Rashi says, but at 15 they know what do you mean you don't notice it. They're both in yeshiva, they're both learning, both get A's on their marks, and this thing and so on. Yet, each one develops in a different way. Yaakov, if it develops that Torah is Ezekiel, and Esav develops that, no, I want the world. I want the more Gashmi stuff. But no one seemed to stop him. So on. There's different ways how to reach to the children, but you have to teach your children to become who they are. not necessarily. The Lashon, I think, is you can't be a carpenter, you should be a gardener. A gardener forms the tree to go the way he wants it to go, but it goes by itself. On the other hand, a carpenter chops down the tree and he puts it in any way he wants, and he can make a round hole going into a square peg, or just the opposite. Square peg and a round hole. And and then you have trouble. That's the basic thing. I don't think they did that. Anyway, have a good Shabbos, everybody. Be well.